Officers, we have had a doozy of a day. After Caveat and Oddity, Damian McCarthy has become a filmmaker closely associated with small spaces, strange objects, and scare construction that feels almost mechanical in its patience. His follow-up moves into a larger release context, with Neon distributing in the United States and Adam Scott stepping into a darker horror lead role after years of playing characters who often weaponize charm, discomfort, or dry frustration. The story follows a bitter American novelist who travels to Ireland to scatter his parents' ashes, and once he arrives, his attention drifts towards a sealed honeymoon suite, rumors of a witch trapped inside the hotel, and a rabbit-shaped mythology that seems to pull the building's history into his own unraveling. That setup gives the movie a familiar haunted hotel shape, but the angle is very much McCarthy's. An abrasive protagonist, an isolated location, a room no one wants opened, and a mystery built around whether the danger comes from the past, the place, or the person staring too long into both. This week, we're talking about Hokum. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Hacker Slash. If you're joining us again, welcome back. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the party. We are a horror movie review podcast dedicated to telling you whether a movie is a hack,
total joke, a waste of time,
or a slash.
Totally killer, pun intended.
My name is Chris. I'm your friendly neighborhood slasher enthusiast. This week I'm joined by the classic horror connoisseur, Sean.
Need something stronger than milk?
And the paranormal paramour, Binks.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there are some oddballs walking around this place.
Listen, you're tuning into Hokum, and if you are a patron or you support the show, you'll also get to hear our B-side at the end of this episode where we get into the theme of drugs in horror movies.
Well, we're going to say no to drugs in just a little bit, but before we get there, what were y'all expecting going into this one?
Okay, well, I had a lot of mixed feelings. Like, is this going to be a folklore horror type movie? I'm watching the trailer as this is getting ready to come out because I feel like the trailer started, like the promotional aspect of this movie happened for a long time. You got little snippets, a teaser, a trailer. I was like, is this going to be a folklore type horror movie? Is this going to be a haunted hotel thing? You know, in the trailer, you get this like creepy looking, what looks to be some kind of bunny or something. Like, what the hell is that? It kind of like reminded me of some kind of Japanese demon or something like that. So I'm like, what am I looking at here? I honestly just had a lot of mixed feelings about this one going into it. And I'll tell you why. I wasn't really 100% sure what we were going to get out of this one because there's this kind of mixed bag of this not only just being a Damian McCarthy film, but also Adam Scott in this one. And so for me, I initially think of Adam Scott and I think of like, you know, he's in a lot of comedies. Like, you know, he's in Parks and Rec, he's in Severance, Step Brothers. And then I realized, okay, well, maybe, I mean, he is in Krampus, he is in, you know, The Monkey in a Small Role or something like that. So, like, there are pieces. So I was like, okay, maybe. But knowing that this is a Damian McCarthy film and knowing that he can create a really strong horror film, we've seen it in Oddity, we've seen it in Caveat, both really good horror movies in their own right. I had a lot of hopes that this was going to be very well done. And so what I also love about Damian McCarthy films and what I was expecting is for because all of his films, to an extent, and even some of his short films have this kind of interconnected or they take place in the same universe, which we really get some fun Easter eggs. So I'm on the lookout for those as well. So there was a lot going on going into this one.
Definitely. And it's a good thing that you brought up the marketing that happened for this so early on, because I remember it might have started around Keeper time. It just felt like it was inserted in there at the perfect timing because it was very ominous. So I remember that teaser trailer. I remember being curious enough to follow. When I had connected the dots that it was with Damian McCarthy and Oddity, I was like, hell yeah, because the thing about Oddity that I loved was if you stare at something long enough, no matter if it's the simplest of things, it's fucking weird and it makes you feel a little unsettled. So I was hoping that we were going to get that definitely here in this Hokum movie, right? But I'm a huge fan of Adam Scott. So I already was like, fuck yeah, no matter what. I'm with you that it's a little bit odd to see him in horror because it's not his most common thing. But knowing that it was potentially going to be some dark subject matter, I know that he can nail that because in Big Little Lies or in Severance, he can get to that range of emotion. So I was like, all right, well, can he do that? Certainly. How is it going to look with him being scared shitless? Guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, man, I like Adam Scott a lot. I mean, I'm a Adam Scott and Parks and Rec and Krampus kind of fan, but I knew next to nothing going into this movie beyond Sean loving the experience that he had, hearing a lot of hype surrounding this movie specifically from Sean. And this came out obviously earlier in May. We've had this, and then when we had Obsession dominating the box office up until Backroom started dominating. And so it's been a pretty good month for horror, but maybe I just hadn't been to the theater enough this year because I missed out on this marketing. I missed out on these trailers. Going into this, knowing that, okay, we're probably going to get something emotional. We're probably going to get something psychological. This guy goes to a hotel. Well, stop me if you heard this one before. But one of the things that really stood out to me in terms of like a first impression is, damn, this setup is actually pretty enticing. Like, yeah, sure, it's a writer, it goes to a haunted location, there's folklore, and the protagonist kind of obnoxious. It almost sounds like The Shining. But what I appreciated here is very early on, you get this sense that it's a story about whether someone who sees everything is doomed can imagine a different ending or a different experience. So even though this was stacked up, okay, I expect it to be good. I don't know, seems like all the familiar ingredients. I was impressed that it started as strongly as it did.
Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting you say it started as strongly as it did, because I agree with you, but was it just me, or did the opening scene kind of throw you off a bit? Because I can tell you, when I sat down to watch this movie, I'm in the theater and the opening of this movie comes out and or starts, and I'm sitting there like, for a moment, I'm like, am I in the wrong movie right now? It took me a minute. I had to see Adam Scott to be like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, when I was watching this movie, I thought, am I about to have to get a refund? Like, what is happening in here?
Did my dumbass sit in the wrong theater? What happened?
Sean, genuinely, with my luck, we have had so many experiences. Well, not we, all of us, but me. I have had so many bad experiences in theaters where something's going on with the projection, something's going wrong with the sound, and I thought, man, is this gonna be the thing? Is this gonna be the thing? I just don't get to see this fucking movie.
Oh my gosh.
What's so interesting about this, and especially its opening, though, is even despite feeling like, wait a minute, did I get the ticket for the right movie or not? When you start to settle in, though, you're settled into a weird, atmospheric, like nonstop ride of tension. It's like a very scary haunted house type vibe with a mix of all kinds of other things too. It's a weird genre blend. Let's say that. I think that there's definitely lots of stills that are jarring, lots of tension and moments where I'm like holding on to myself, to my friend, like, oh shit, what's about to happen? But it's all because of different things that are going on, whether it be, again, this haunted house vibe, whether it be this folklore story. It's a few moments jumbled in that cause this kind of tension.
Yeah, and what I appreciate so much about it, especially with this opening, is it makes very, very clear that although he is a fiction writer, his fiction and his reality are blending in really interesting ways. And sure, we think about some of the other horror movies that have featured writers. We're going to talk about that again later in the B-side, but we have Secret Window, Misery, The Shining, etc. All of those, to some extent, have a little bit of that. But this does it in a different way that I think really sets us up nicely to see what his worldview is. And I think what I really appreciated about it, even just experiencing this movie, is the straight line that you can draw from that opening shot all the way to the unresolved grief that we are still contending with 3 acts later.
Yeah, for sure. It did. Once you get past that and the story kind of sets in and you are starting to be in we'll call it, we're probably going to be a theme throughout this movie of the atmosphere of this movie, because it is genuinely spooky. It feels like you're sitting in this old folk story that you might be told as a kid to scare you, but then it's told in real time in a modern setting. So you've got like this really mix of things going on. And I think this movie just built one of the best spooky atmospheres that I can honestly remember in recent years. It was an oppressive atmosphere. It doesn't, like, to your point, Binks, like once it gets going, it doesn't kind of let up for a long time. It can feel like a slow burn at times, but it really just grabs you. Everything about this movie, the visuals, the way that it's filmed, the shots, the cinematography, and the sound all mixed together to really create this world that you're just really at like this tension and unease and this sense of like lurking dread that happens. And it doesn't let you escape that feeling that something is lurking behind you all the time. No matter what happens, you're just forced to kind of react to things in this movie, which we'll talk about later. Things that you wouldn't normally react to. And I think the audience reaction for this movie was great. And you see it in theaters with a whole bunch of people. People were jumping, yelling, getting scared at silly things. It was a time for sure.
Yeah, a time indeed. And even though I'm with you on just the ambiance of everything, and the folk story in a modern setting definitely has a lot to do with that, I will say that it's something that you're feeling, you're spooked out, but halfway through the movie, I almost forgot what was the folk story that even got us here to begin with. It was one of those moments where I'm like, wait a second, what was that thing that we were told at the very beginning? Should I have maybe remembered it? I'm not too sure. But fuck it. It set the tone of I'm terrified. So I guess it did its job subconsciously, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of blurred lines in this movie, and there's so many layers to what's happening. You have the writer, his story, the family experience, the creepiness of the hotel, the weird people in the hotel, then the folklore behind that, then the drugs of it all. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening in this movie. And I think one of the things that is really significant to me, and just like walking away from it, it is a movie with great atmosphere. Sean, you mentioned it. 100% agreed. I was engaged because Adam Scott I found to be compelling, although infuriating, and the chemistry between the characters works really well. But as much as I was drawn into the mood, as much as I was drawn into that friction and the dry humor and the hotel, I wasn't really compelled by the mythology, the folklore, any of that. That was a big old swing and a miss, and it felt like it almost overcomplicated something that didn't need to be that complex.
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. I don't know if we needed a whole laundry list of things to be added into this story, but I'm with you on the Adam Scott part. I think that him being an asshole is prime stuff because, again, although he does a lot of comedy and drama, in a lot of those things, he plays an asshole kind of character, not Parks and Rec. The opposite, actually. But Step Brothers, iconic role, complete dick. So when he does it, he does a very good job at doing it. So yeah, you don't really like him much, but he's compelling enough to keep following through to the very end for sure.
Yeah, he definitely plays into the asshole bit quite a bit. Like, he does it really well, which is perfect for the character that he has in this movie, and it fits really well into the, you know, when you're really thinking about it up front, you're not really in. We'll dive into characters and spoilers and really dive into the backstory of Ohm, the character and the main character in this movie, but it's definitely something where like it progresses and you kind of go on this journey as the story unfolds, which I think was actually really, really well done. But also what's really well done is the scares in this movie are so well done that it doesn't even really matter if you are expecting them or not expecting them, because they come from all different angles. It's not all the same cookie cutter jump scare nonsense. There are moments where they're telling stories in the movie, almost like sharing a ghost story, where you know you're going to see something spooky, but you still get reactions from it. And there's going to be moments where you're just not ready for something and it happens and you still get spooked. And then there are the moments that just linger for so long that you know that you shouldn't, you just don't want to be in that space anymore, but you're still there. And there's a lot of different ways that this movie builds the fear. And I think it was really, really well done.
You know, I respect that, Sean, but I don't think I felt a damn near lick of fear. I felt a lot of other things, right? And I think going back to what you said about Ohm in general, he is someone that is stuck in doom. His book feels stuck. His life feels stuck. His grief feels stuck. And I think by the end of the movie, it manages to find a way to make his creative struggle feel tied to actual emotional progress and movement. But I just found that the scares, while great looking, I want to be clear, great looking, They just didn't hit for me. But again, like
Wild.
Supernatural doesn't really do anything for me. I thought it looked beautiful. It looks so good, but it just wasn't effective. It didn't make me jump or even feel like, okay, yeah, sure, it's a little tense and a little mystery whodunit, but I didn't feel particularly scared by this thing.
That's wild.
Wow. You're impenetrable. That's crazy. I was terrified for sure. And it's interesting that you say that, because I would have thought that maybe, and we'll definitely get into this later, but I thought that maybe you would think that the circumstances, if not the generic and the structured scares, right, you'd find terrifying, because I think it's both in a sense. But I think that's a little nuanced, because at the same time, we've already disclosed Ohm is a bit of an asshole. So it's kind of hard to feel the emotional range of things for a guy that's quite a dick at the beginning. So interesting. That's really interesting. Now,
It's wild, though, because I feel the emotional range of things for him, just not fear, just not anything that makes this a horror movie. I'm like,
yeah. Okay. No, I get you. I don't know. Yeah, I thought that this movie was, if at anything at all, was definitely a classic scary movie for me. I was definitely terrified of some corners and some hallways, and I felt congested at times, and there was a severe lack of safety for a good majority of this movie. I was like, visually, this is the stuff that I love and what really will keep me up at night.
Yeah.
So maybe that's also why this movie has stuck with me for so long. I feel like I just watched it yesterday type thing. But on the other side of the coin, I will say that, since we've started to talk a little bit about characters as a whole, at least Ohm, there's other characters in this movie that, along with the themes that have been added into here, characters that I don't know if they were fully necessary or they were just existing to say one small piece of the 20 things that this movie is about. So it's a little out of left field. It feels a little disjointed, sometimes strangely explained. You forget who some people are. So it's weird when it comes to the actual people that are facilitating the 20 stories going on in this movie.
And again, those 20 stories, in short: writer's block, family grief, haunted hotel, local fucking legend, suspicious people in the hotel, a strange guy in the woods, a creepy children's show, a locked room that nobody gets into. Like, you just got so much. You just got so much.
I think it all worked really well together. I don't think it was too much. It didn't throw me off at all. I really feel like, the characters, maybe, I don't know, but I feel like, maybe it's also, well, Binks, you said you watched it more than once. I don't know. Maybe it's me watching it again and getting another whole, take it all in and really pay attention to the little things as it's unfolding a story that I already know is unfolding and looking for different things. But I wasn't thrown off by the plethora of different subplots that were going on in this movie. I think it was really good, but once you, even if that some of that throws you off, I think this movie is so effective just in the way that it builds the atmosphere that has you literally on edge, because no matter what part of the story you're in or what area they're telling or what kind of backstory or what have you, I think it's just really well done, especially when we get to, a certain particular part in the movie. Without giving any spoilers away, you get up into, this specific room, and it's just a significant section of the movie. And when you're up there, it's a wild ride of tension and unease. There's an entire scene in this section that I feel like carried on for a while that was genuinely effective for me. I think it's full of dread. The sound, it all builds and it doesn't let up until literally the morning comes. And I think it's just a really solid chunk. It's very oppressive. I think I don't know. What didn't work for me, and I'm listening to everything that you all said, maybe too many characters that didn't need to be there, or too many side stories that added to layers of this overall story that maybe didn't need to be there. What didn't work for me that I kind of go back and forth on is there is a specific other type of antagonist character that felt like it could have just been thrown in there for fun. So we'll have to dive into that. It was creepy, but did it need to be in there? So I guess we'll see.
I'm curious to see what direction you're going with that, because anything representing an antagonist, I actually didn't mind at all. There are just other things happening in this movie. I was like, okay. And I want to be clear, Damian McCarthy's a great filmmaker. There's nothing bad in this movie. It was just a lot. This movie had a lot to say. Did it all need to be said? I don't know. But what I can appreciate about this movie is that when you go into this and you're going through the experience of this movie, if you are someone who's looking for a slow burn, I think this is good. And it doesn't burn too slowly. There are a lot of things that happen in this. And, you know, again, I'm just considering the experience and how I think other people respond to this. It is a fun time. And it doesn't crawl to the point where it's boring. But if you're someone who does like a slow burn and you like, again, that atmosphere, if you like films that rely on a lot of like legend and supernatural elements, I think this is a really interesting one to go for. But what I think is super interesting, and I'm just reflecting on this, Sean, as you were saying that, I feel like this movie would have made a great true crime podcast from Adam Scott's character's perspective.
Ooh.
And I feel like maybe that's what it is. It just feels so much of that to me that I'm like no longer counting it as a horror movie, even though there's a lot of great shit in it.
It's fair. It's got a lot you can say like if you're into slow burn horror, you can get into this one. If you're into true crime, whodunit, whatever, you can get into this one. Mystery thriller, you can get into this one. It's also just a solid spooky ghost story. Like there is that aspect of it there. I feel like there is something for everyone. So for me, like, I don't really know why anyone would want to skip this movie. I think if you're into a movie that immerses you in creepiness and surroundings and like that you just enjoy a good ghost story, you're probably going to like this one. I think that, you know, it could throw some people off if there's not really a clear protagonist in the film or something like that. If you need someone to believe in, someone to buy into, maybe this one will throw you off. But overall, I think there is something that everyone could like in this horror movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. And to be honest, it's funny the timing of things, because even that being said, with Ohm not necessarily being the brightest and, you know, lighthearted, sweet protagonist that we tend to get, we just saw in Obsession that Bear are basically our protagonist. And, you know, well, if you've seen Obsession, you know where I'm going with that. So I just feel like we have seen now in horror where there are protagonists that maybe are people you don't want to follow, and yet they're compelling and you're invested enough. And again, there's something for everyone. And maybe that's a lot of things on the table that typically don't get organized in the best way in a horror film. In this case, they make do. I personally am a huge fan, obviously, of the paranormal and supernatural. So check. I love murder mystery stuff. Check. Like, there's a lot of things that work for me. I think if you are going into this, though, not prepared for the array of themes, you might get a little lost and forget some stuff. But don't worry. At least for me, I can promise that you're going to get fucking scared. If you're a scaredy cat, that there is no doubt in my mind about.
Wow, you really have sold this as the triple dipper of Damian McCarthy's filmography.
Listen, I feel God in this Chili's tonight, and it's Hokum.
I mean,
all right?
I feel like if you look at this movie, and then if you've watched Caveat and you've watched Oddity, I think you take both of those movies, you put everything that worked in those movies, you build this movie and amplify it. That's what you get in this movie.
Listen, maybe refer back to the Oddity episode, but I think I feel very differently about this movie than I did about Oddity. I haven't seen Caveat, but there are a lot of things that I loved in Oddity that I think are very distinct and stand on their own. And this I still enjoy, but it just feels a little bit different. But we have to start making our way towards our ratings. Before we actually score this movie and reveal our answers, Sean, how would you describe the gore score?
The gore is pretty tame in this movie. It's not like over the top. It's there. There is a small amount of gore, if you will, some blood here and there. But this is a movie that is far more effective without the need of any blood, really. So it's not like it's there. It adds a little bit of color, if you will, to the film. But it's not in need. You don't need the gore. You won't miss the gore. So this one is earning a low gore score.
And what about the animal report?
Well, unfortunately, we're not clean here. We're not entirely safe. Goats are hunted down for being a nuisance, which seems a bit extreme to me, but that's that.
As a Capricorn, I take personal offense and umbrage, but it's time to make our way towards our ratings. Hokum, was it a hack or a slash? And just to delay the inevitable even a little bit more, before we dive into our scores, I actually want to share a couple of takes from our listeners. So we have Ryan, who says, it was McCarthy's best movie. I think it's his tightest script while still being super twisty and unconventional structurally. I think the locked room conceit really grounded the movie and kept it focused. Always love how his movies combine all these witches, ghosts, and murderers. There's no scare as good as the oddity tent scene or the balcony scene, but a couple scenes come close. Loved it. Also, just a really sweet ending.
I can respect it. I agree. It was solid.
And then from Drew, we have, I really enjoyed this movie overall. It had a nice creepy vibe, but holy hell did I just want to punch Adam Scott in the face throughout the whole movie. It didn't do anything really new, but what it did and did well. It's a great one-off movie that doesn't need any sort of sequel. And that I can respect and agree with Drew.
For sure, for sure. I mean, hey, listen, some would say that if, the characters are making you want to react in that way, then they did it. They did their job. That's all I'm saying.
They absolutely did. Now, folks, if you want to share your take on these movies, please, in the episode description, you can click fan mail, and then you can actually send us a text or send us a voicemail with your opinions. But, Sean Binks, time for y'all to love on this movie.
Sean, take it away.
Okay, all right. Listen, I did go into Hokum with mixed expectations. I do want to start with that. I did go in. I said at the beginning of this podcast, I went in, I just couldn't fully picture Adam Scott leading a horror film. Even though Damian McCarthy has already built an incredible track record with films like Oddity and Caveat, I went in with mixed expectations. But let me tell you, this ended up being, for me, one of the best horror movies I've seen in quite a long time. Before I watched Obsession, this was probably my number one movie of the year by far. And honestly, after a second viewing, it still might be up there. It's a brutal toss-up between the two for me, like Obsession and Hokum. We had solid horror movies that came out in May. It's been a great month for horror. And so what for me makes Hokum work so well is that at its core, it's an incredibly well-told ghost story. The set design, the sound design come together to create this atmosphere that just feels genuinely unnerving. The film, it almost gives you a 2-for-1 haunting, not just through the setting itself, but through our main character, Ohm, whose presence and backstory add another layer of dread to the entire experience. And it does start kind of in that slower burn territory, but once it reaches a certain turning point, it never really lets go for the rest of the film. The tension just keeps tightening. I especially love the depth woven into Ohm's story and how it enriches kind of the haunting at the center of the film instead of just serving as this background lore for me. And I think it kind of plays on what's the true haunting here? What are we actually experiencing? And at this point, for me, Damian McCarthy has completely sold me. Everything he's touched so far has been absolute gold for me. And just like he slashed right through my expectations, Hokum earns itself a ghastly slash. I love this movie. This is a great movie. I want to own this movie.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Especially that it's so high up there already in May. I mean, I'm with you on that. That's pretty fair. I watched this movie a long time ago as a part of the Miami Film Festival. And so typically by now, I would say that this film would be very hazy in my mind. Even when I, was approached to rewatch it again, I thought, okay, typically by now I wouldn't remember a thing. But this movie, however, is still as vivid as if I had finished watching this movie right before recording it. And I think a big reason for that is its atmosphere, the themes that I mentioned that I'm very much about, right? That it's haunted house, it's a ghost story, it's terrifyingly captured in this low light or using just a single light source. There are more than a handful of scenes where your eyes will get a little bit wider and you're completely shocked by what's on display. So all of these things I think is what kept my memory of this movie so sharp and alive. Now, that being said, as I've already expressed, there are definitely some pitfalls here to its actual story, okay? Some character connections that feel a little random and disjointed, some decisions that I have a little bit of questions about, and obviously this underlying folklore tail felt like it was easily forgotten. If there was one thing that I did forget, it was the details of that, albeit short-lived in its tail itself, but I kind of forgot the details, I'll be honest. But it's fine because ultimately it didn't take away from how entertaining this movie was. I think it's a standard haunted horror film, and it's got a central character that, again, you're enticed to follow no matter how much of a dick he is. And there's other characters here that, yeah, they may be a little bit random, but some have some charm and some you're kind of wondering what their motives are. And it's just enough to keep you going. And so all that said, I, thinking of Adam Scott specifically, I had the opportunity to meet him after watching this, and he asked me what I thought of Hokum. And I was hyperventilating because holy shit. And I definitely was thinking, okay, well, there's some things that, okay, like, do I tell him? That would be crazy. But my response was simple. I told him, I really did. I told him it was a slash. I don't know if he understood what I meant when I said that to him. That's fine. But I still stand by that today. It was definitely a slash.
One can only hope that you gave him the vocabulary to understand what the slash meant. But hey, this movie works on a lot of different levels. And I know I said there are multiple levels to this movie and maybe some layers that didn't need to be there. But what I can appreciate is it gives me enough horror atmosphere to stay engaged moment to moment. There isn't really anything that's boring in this movie. It does also give me enough emotional shape to feel like it actually wants to go somewhere and say something. Again, on that horror side, there's a lot of stuff that the movie sets up that I would want from this kind of story, right? You have that weird hotel. It feels like there's something going on among the staff. You have a protagonist who's walking into something that he is in no earthly realm prepared for. There's mythology that creates a sense of like history while also being a threat. There's creepy fucking rooms. The place looks, anything as far from generic as you possibly can. I appreciate even just down to the set design in this movie. And then there's weird shit like a fucking rabbit in this movie that really makes it stand out. And it's like, okay, is this The Shining or Donnie Darko? I don't know. This movie also balances a tone so well because while you have this character who is abrasive and who is a little bit much, he also has some moments of humor in there that really deflect. And maybe that's why I didn't feel any real fear in this movie, because you're just kind of viewing everything from his perspective. But what I love most about this and why I think this is such a strong slash for me is its emotional arc. There are horror movies where a writer checks into the wrong place, but this is a horror movie where a writer has checked into the wrong place, literally and figuratively, more so emotionally. And I think Adam Scott delivers a performance that highlights that really, really well. He is stuck creatively, again, because he is stuck emotionally. And it gives all that atmosphere a sense of purpose. It's less about the hotel and its inner workings. Like, yes, okay, that's fun. It's entertaining and it gets a little dramatic. But what I found myself most invested in is his journey. And this isn't a clean slash for me. It's still a little messy. It's also, I don't know that I can explain every detail of this movie, but I liked being inside it. And that is enough for me. With that, Hokum from 2026 has earned a universal slash. Now we're about to unseal that honeymoon suite. We're going to break down what's really going on in that hotel by crossing into the spoiler zone. We'll see you in a bit.
Episode of Hacker Slash is brought to you by Jerry's Magic Milk, the official goat's milk beverage of wandering in the woods, talking to witches, and making eye contact with things that absolutely should not be looking back at you. Crafted deep in the forest by a man who hasn't blinked since 1997, Jerry's Magic Milk is infused with locally sourced mushrooms, moon water, and just a hint of bad decisions. One sip and suddenly an antique mirror in your hallway starts whispering your childhood fears back at you. Need a little escape from reality? Jerry's got you covered. Every bottle of our signature goat milk is guaranteed to either expand your consciousness or summon something that crawls towards you at 2 a.m. Unlike other dairy products, Jerry's Magic Milk is completely free-range, ethically cursed, and collected from goats that may or may not be familiars for woodland witches. Side effects include seeing shadow figures in reflective surfaces, speaking fluent cryptic prophecy, believing the trees are judging you, becoming emotionally attached to an old woman who lives in the woods. Use promo code /thepasture for 10% off your first crate and complimentary hand-carved wooden talisman to protect you from whatever's standing behind you in the mirror right now. Jerry's Magic Milk, because sometimes the scariest thing in the woods is what's staring back at you in the glass.
Welcome back, folks. You're now entering the spoiler zone for Hokum, which has earned a universal slash. We're going to kick things off with Sean's Slay by Slay.
Well, this is an interesting one. This film it's not really a film that is giving you a lot of kills. In fact, it doesn't even show you most of the kills, but the kills in this movie are very emotional. They hit really hard in this one, even if you don't see them and you're just hearing about them. And there's surprisingly 6 kills that we can kind of break down in this movie. So let's kind of get into them now. I think we'll start with what happens prior to the movie's events, and we'll just kick it off with the big bang, no pun intended, Ohm's mom. That was genuinely heartbreaking.
Yeah, that was really, really rough. And obviously, when you start the movie and you see what ends up being her ghost and her figure, her specter just kind of looming in the background, you have to wonder, okay, what the fuck is up with her now? We have the ashes that he's spreading of her and his dad. But the more that you learn moment by moment through this movie of even like how he describes who killed his mother and that they were too young to be tried or really punished, it was just super fucked up. So when we finally get to that scene and he's playing with a gun and what ends up being her groceries just dropped on the floor and the blood slowly emerging, her coming from behind him. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Painful.
It's crazy. There's something about the way they told how this death happened, as because it kind of like we go into it in 2 different sections, but when we get into those scenes, it's almost like we're getting insight into Ohm's like suppressed memory of what's happening, something that he remembers, because there's some weird stuff. It's a very empty, dark space. It's very empty. There's just this TV on the ground with this children's show that's happening, which we all think is like, I honestly thought it was a bunny for a long time. I guess it's Jack the Jackass, the donkey or whatever, but it looks like a bunny to me. It is just a very, very interesting way that they told this story, but so effective and just heartbreaking the way that the gun pops off and her instinct initially is to just go and hug Ohm and like almost like it's okay, you know what I mean, right away. But you know, the fact that all happened was insane.
And how fucked up is it that how does he still have the gun? Why are they keeping that gun in the family?
It's just one of those things, you know? It's I guess one of those things where he's like, I have to remember this. This is just something that is he's latched onto for so long. He's carrying the weight of this guilt.
Yeah, I hit a man with my car, so I thought I would just keep the fucking steering wheel the rest of my life. God damn, no, you don't need to do that. Get rid of it.
I hear you.
Talk about masochism and a lack of therapist.
Yeah. It's a lot, which is also heartbreaking as this story unfolds, is that like, because of what happened, his dad basically hates him, right? And then becomes this alcoholic that drinks himself to death. And so like, he not only loses his mom by accidentally shooting her playing with his dad's gun, he now loses his dad, who probably treated him like crap all the way up until his death. So God only knows what Ohm has dealt with as a child, you know, growing up with this guilt and then with it getting thrown probably in his face. Who knows how that worked out, but it just is very, very dark and very heartbreaking.
My answer to that is not to be a dick to the father in particular, but some nuance there, I would imagine, or I would hope, is that the father probably feels guilty for letting the gun be easily accessible to begin with. But
I don't know. Based on how Ohm's acting, it's giving How dare you do it's giving Bear blaming Sandy for getting into his fucking meds that he left possible. That's what it's giving.
Oh, God.
Holmes' dad is definitely like, you son of a bitch. May your mother rest in peace.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, this is actually a topic that, has probably come up tons of times, sadly, right? Like there's always this thing of like, if you're going to own a gun, are you going to keep it safe? Are you going to keep it loaded or unloaded in a locked box, in a gun safe? Like, where do you keep it? Because we know that things have actually happened in real life where kids find the gun and they want to play with it. They think it's cool. And the next thing you know, they either shoot themselves or shoot their friend or something happens. And it's very sad. So like, I get what they're playing with there for sure. On a lighter note, before we dive further into the kills, on a lighter note, maybe this is funny, I don't know, but there was a moment in the very beginning when we see the first kind of scare of what we now know is Ohm's mother behind him in his apartment. There was a very brief moment where I was like, is this Marty Feldman from Young Frankenstein? Is that Igor?
Oh shit. Wow.
It was a brief moment. I got over it pretty quick, but the first thought, I was like, "Oh my god, this is so strange." It's either that or the witch from like Snow White or something. I don't know. It was a brief moment. Obviously, probably just me, but it's all good. That's just the way my brain operates. So we go forward throughout this story, right? And then we start to learn even more. These are all deaths that we don't really get to see. We kind of hear about. So carrying on with that, we learn about Jerry, who's a great character in this movie. He's a great character, this random vagabond that lives in the woods and eats a bunch of mushrooms or drinks mushroom milk. Who knows? He's tripping out in the woods. But we learn that his backstory is a little dark. He kills his wife. We also kind of later on learned that he killed his wife as, what he says is a mercy kill due to her terminal illness. And he also was validated by this because he also was tripping on mushrooms and saw the ghost of his wife that he killed, who told him, "Thank you for doing that."
Yeah. I mean, hold on a second. Let's just go on down to the county courthouse. Let's go to the county jail, follow the next couple murder trials. And when it time's for arraignment or indictment, let's just say, hey, as it turns out, my wife was dying. It was a mercy kill, dog.
Mercy kill.
It's giving Silent Hill 2 James Sunderland. It's giving how convenient, how odd, how interesting and well-timed there.
She had it coming.
Yeah, put me in front of the jury and let me explain to you the trip that I had where my wife told me that I was validated in killing her.
Officers, we have had a doozy of a day. There I was, minding my business, tripping my balls off with mushrooms, and my wife was dying of cancer.
Yikes. Oh, man. Yeah, it's not a great story. It's not a super compelling story for anyone that wasn't on the mushrooms. But then get into some really dark stuff, right? The movie kind of like really kicks off into this kind of like mystery, ghost story, witch story, this whole plethora of different things happening. And we see Fiona, who dies in the movie, a character that, we kind of grow to like because she is someone that kind of didn't back down to Ohm and his bitchiness in the very beginning. It's the only character that Ohm kind of like warmed up to a little bit. And she's the one that found Ohm, who almost tried to kill himself by hanging himself in his hotel room. But she was later on, we find out that she was killed by what we think could be either the witch that's living in the basement of the hotel, but through the honeymoon suite, or maybe died from malnourishment from being stuck there. Like, it's a mixture of different things. We're not 100% sure. Either way, one of the creepiest looking bodies I've seen in quite some time. If you want to talk about a bunny, you want to talk about Donnie Darko, we're talking about Fiona in the fucking elevator shaft here.
That is a moment that will be marked in the brain, because holy Christ, was that unsettling. And even though that it's shown in one of the trailers, I believe, first of all, the way that she looks, it's so disturbing that you don't, at least for me, you don't realize that it's Fiona. So I'm watching the movie, never thinking nor remembering that I'm about to eventually see a clip of a woman stuffed in a fucking dumbwaiter as a bunny.
Yeah.
Disturbing, absolutely. Now, this is a death, though, that I was kind of like curious about, because to my interpretation of this is it was malnourishment and she was stuck, because otherwise this witch, it's not a morality thing, I don't believe. She will take anyone to the underworld.
That's true.
And she couldn't have drawn a circle like in such a small dumbwaiter.
That's
so
true.
I don't quite know.
What's interesting though, because like to your point, what was the purpose of her not being taken by the witch? Was it only because now I'm thinking, okay, now I get it. So now if we think back to this story that the hotel owner is telling these two kids in the very beginning when Ohm is checking into the hotel, there's the folklore kind of story that he's telling the kids to scare them about this witch that will essentially capture you and drag you through the underworld. And then there's another layer where maybe she might also chop your private parts off for fun. Like that was also a little hinted at thing, saying it without saying it kind of thing. And so now that I think about that specific touch, like that specific point that was made, maybe she only takes men?
I mean, it seems that way because the only people that we see, although not many options, I suppose, otherwise to really test this theory, it is technically just men that
Seems
she's
like
taken.
The witch is a girl's girl.
Apparently so. And so, yeah, I don't know. All I do know is that if I can figure out where, I mean, this is probably like really expensive shit, but if I can figure out where they got the contacts for that body, I would love to grab a pair of those for Halloween, because that seems like I can make a dead person come to life. You know what I mean? I'm in for it.
Are you about to be Fiona in the dumbwaiter for Halloween?
Oh my God, can you imagine? That'd be kind of cool. I'd have to oh my gosh. I'm kind of with it, actually. That'd be kind of fun.
I didn't find her body to be that disturbing. Maybe I've just seen too much fucked
Chris,
up shit.
I don't know what's going on over there.
I don't know what's happening
there either. Yeah, listen, like I thought, like, oh man, when we saw her again, it just hit me emotional. I'm like, fuck, man, and like when you see the state that she's in, you just realize that she's been just trapped down there for months at this point, and so it was painful to me to see her and think about the suffering and just like the waiting and just being stuck there. But I mean, reality is, I think maybe like my brain just blocked out her looking worse because she is wearing a fuzzy bunny costume. So I think I just separated that. I was like, okay, she got a little dirty. I mean, granted, she's probably sitting there in her own filth.
Oh my God.
She looked incredible, but also not so much where I'm like, damn, that's a great corpse. You know what I mean?
I don't know. The face, man, it was something about it. Like there was moments mixed with the kind of the lighting and then the play on the sound design and the score. There were moments where like my mind was also like expecting her to move the whole time, like come to life in some way. I almost convinced myself she did move at a point, but obviously it didn't. There's also the thing where she kind of disappeared and then reappeared, but then I think that's later explained once we figure out that Ohm has been drinking the magic stuff for a little while. So but okay, we'll continue with, I'm sure there's more to say about Fiona. I'm sure there's more to say about some of the scenes that surround Fiona, but Jerry, we'll get into Jerry because the next death that we get is Jerry. He gets, he's a strong character, man. Like he's, as much as like you want to be like, man, this guy killed his wife, that seems kind of sketch. He also, for the rest of the movie, kind of showcases that he has a really good heart and he's really trying to help his friends and stuff. And so he is like this positive driving force in the film, which he ends up getting shot in the head with a crossbow by Mal later on as he's trying to help Ohm escape the honeymoon suite.
Just as it seems like he's about to say, I'll live.
Yeah.
It's so shitty. I mean, Jerry's death didn't devastate me, but I enjoyed him so much as a character. And so when he dies, it was, okay, yes, I'm not emotionally wrecked. Like, I think I hurt more for Fiona, but I was very much like, oh, Jerry, damn, I liked him. He had a heart of gold quality that really worked for me, which is weird to think about, like a guy doing shrooms in the woods who killed his own wife. Okay, He's weird for sure, but he isn't cruel. And I think everything that we see from him shows that he's not cruel, which makes him so much more likable and so much more warm. So when Mal shoots Jerry with that crossbow, it also feels almost even more like Mal's cowardice, right? Because it's not like this big grand villainous gesture. It's just like this desperate moment of cleanup, and he's trying to erase every witness and burn the whole place down. And so it just sucks, and it's so shitty that Jerry went out that way after everything he fought through to come back and to really try to help, and his own conscience pushing him forward and trying to find Fiona.
Yeah, it is. It's complicated. It's complicated. This movie does this thing where like the characters outside, pretty much like the characters between between Jerry, right? You're kind of going back and forth on, do you like this character? Do you not? And Jerry was, despite what backstory he has, just a really positive dude, which is interesting. And then we get to Mal, because let's just talk about this guy, because there isn't any gray area here. This guy is just a genuine piece of shit. He is a terrible, terrible dude. We see all of the bullshit that he's doing. He's not only responsible for Fiona's death, and we later find out that it's because he didn't, like, she was going to have his baby and he didn't want her to have it. And so like his reaction was like, let me just stuff you down this fucking, elevator thing and just let you die. And like, what a crazy fucking dude this guy is.
Obsession and Hokum both really just teach us that men really do be sucking sometimes.
It was crazy. This guy, I can't believe it.
I, first of all, needed to wrap my head around the fact that Fiona would even dare touch Mal with like a stick.
Okay, Binks, this is Fiona to Mal as Nikki to Ian. Like, what the fuck are these women thinking?
Yeah.
Do better.
Ladies.
You deserve better.
We're settling a little too far on the deep end here. I know things are rough, but come on now.
Bad choices. Yeah, so like he's just a bad dude. He's responsible for Fiona's death. He's responsible for Jerry's death. He's trying to obviously also let Ohm rot in this fucking honeymoon suite. So like there's nothing good about him. So when this fucker gets dragged into the underworld by the witch, it was definitely justified. But I will tell you, all of these kills, I think they hit in some way. You see some stuff that I think is really well done. There's so many things we can talk about, and what made this movie so like great to watch and just invested in watching and captivated. I think for one, we can just start with the set design. I think the set design itself was just incredible. I'm sure y'all have something to say about it. Everything about the way this movie looks is perfect, from the creepy old hotel to the honeymoon suite to just all of like the little dream sequences that we get. Everything was so well done. The dimly lit everything, the gothic look. I love it.
Absolutely. I have never been more afraid of sheer cloth surrounding 4 bedpost bed frame. I don't know what you would describe that, but if you can visually follow me here and think about it in your head, fuck that noise. I would never. When I was a kid, sure, I wanted a little canopy moment, surrounding my bed, all cute. After this movie, throw that shit away. Hell to the no.
Yeah.
It is not okay.
It is so reminiscent, Binks, of the, what is it? It's All Coming Back to Me Now music video, where it's just billowing curtains and billowing dresses from Celine Dion. That's what it seems and feels like. And that whole moment, especially like just the way that everything feels very old and musty and musky, but also glamorous in a really fucking dingy, ghosty way.
Oh, the whole honeymoon suite just feels like it hasn't been lived in so long. But the details that you see, the little cherubs that are on the fireplace, the creepy little thing that is swinging that against the clock, like, oh man, it's
beautifully done. It reminds me of The Haunting.
It does.
Like Haunting of Hill House. It's perfect. And Adam Scott was saying at the event that when they were shooting in that room, they never turned an actual light on. They were operating off of the natural light that was coming in from that room. Like they never turned on any of the lights. He was by himself for, I think, like several weeks at one point, like just to be in that atmosphere and space. So it's like, Jesus, and even as like knowing that you're doing a movie, fine, but being a normal human being, just acting, showing up to work, and that's where you're going to work is a big hail to the no.
He's like, yeah, I just spent, my night sleeping in that bed. I just really soaked it all in. That if I had lived in that space for that long and that, I mean, I feel like eventually I guess you would get used to it, but like it just feels like such a creepy environment to just be chilling in. I don't know. It was really well done either way. I think the other thing that really stands out is the sound in this movie. Everything from the score to the sound effects and the sound design as a whole, it was incredibly atmospheric. It's a huge addition to why this movie feels as creepy as it does. It really just proves what a good score will do to a movie. It's really proof right here, all the way to this point where there's like moments in this film where the sound adds to jump scares that aren't even that just get you, even though they're so stupid. Like there's a moment where you're just living in this space. It's like this lurking dread. The sound, the score is just kind of there. It's humming. You're just like moving around, and then all of a sudden it's quiet, and then all of a sudden the fucking clock hits, and the little ding hits on the clock, and you're just like, oh my god. It was hilarious. It was absolutely great. I love when movies can do that.
For sure. And I really want to just shout out for a moment here the sound design, especially when we have the children's show and he's like obviously surrounding this, we see the show and everything seems really fucking normal, and it then becomes almost like this Welcome to Derry Pennywise-esque situation where it's like there's some kind of sentience here, and we're understanding that this character and like this manifestation of the show is his own's projection and his guilt for everything. And I remember just hearing, and stop me if you I've also had the same thought. Do we remember all that?
Yeah.
On Nickelodeon?
Yes.
So when in the children's show, he's like, "Dear Jack, that's me." I was also thinking, "Dear Ashley, that's me." Amanda Bynes.
yes,
One of the
100%.
best fucking segments. Yeah, and then I'm really sad thinking about how everything worked out for her. Hope she's well.
Yeah.
Damn. But aside from the sound in this movie, which is honestly stunning, one of the things that I really, really loved is actually just the opening. And again, not just the framing of it and how we get this like moment in this glimpse into what his process is like, how he's stuck, but it is specifically the little things that tie the sequence together. And it's a beautiful moment of editing where you see this ring in the sand and then you cut to him actually fucking writing this story, and it's the condensation ring from the glass. And that's what I'm saying. It's like this beautiful blend of not only his reality, but the fiction that he's conjuring and how these things both influence each other's. I just absolutely fucking loved it.
It took me, I think, the second watch to really appreciate that even more, because I think the first time that I watched it, I was so taken aback by how odd it was to open the movie that way that I didn't, once I got through the movie, I was reflecting and I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. And then when I watched it a second time, I was like, okay, now I'm getting the parallels of what he's writing to how it translates to what he's going through.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, even from, again, the drinking that he's doing in real life to cope and to numb, to then the drinking and like the quenching of thirst out in the desert, searching for something in this like duality of this companionship. But then to go straight into what he's being haunted by with his parents. Again, just the way these two things kind of like cut back and forth. And that's, again, I think another just strong aspect of what this film does well technically. It makes it clear that his writing is a pressure valve for his guilt.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I think all of this stuff works to really bring this movie to life. I will shout out, I absolutely love how Damian McCarthy connects his horror films. We touched on it a little bit earlier, and he connects his horror films through these subtle shared items, these characters, these reoccurring motifs. I think these movies kind of exist in the same universe, and this is something that I brought up even in the oddity episode as well. We have in this movie a few different things that connect both oddity and caveat to this one, which I thought were really great. We have the desk bell at the desk. That's obviously the haunted desk bell from Oddity. we have in the beginning where, we're first introduced to Ohm checking into this hotel. We have the couple that is checking into the hotel that's played by the same characters from Caveat, and they are actually seen with the stuffed rabbit sticking out of their luggage. So that all ties back to Caveat. And then if you caught it, you can see the moment where Fiona is introducing this Irish folklore book. And on the book, it says that it's written by D. Odello, which is another nod to oddity from Darcy Odello.
Man, this is giving Mike Flanagan a Midnight Mass and Hush.
Yeah.
Which I am all about. I'm all about it.
I think it's just fun. I think he adds this layer of things that, like, if you're a fan of his films, like, obviously his filmography isn't super vast right now, but if you're a fan of Caveat and you watched Oddity and now you watch this, and you don't even have to watch them in any specific order. If you just watched Hokum and you really liked Hokum, go back and maybe watch the other two films as well. There's just these kind of nods that you'll kind of notice if you pay attention. And I think it's just kind of a really fun thing to do. I don't know how long you can carry it, but it's kind of cool.
Well, I hope in the next movie he has a Easter egg for Jack, the jackass, because personally, him as a character or just him being in this movie, I thought that he was incredible and terrifying. And yes, although halfway through I couldn't quite discern if he was a bunny, a donkey, or what have you.
Yeah.
I don't really care. He looks strange. And I think like his introduction, we've talked about it already with the children's show, like it was incredible because any setting like that, I find very compelling and eerie and fucked up because you're mixing in this concept of like innocence, right? And this curiosity of children and they're having fun with some elements of like uncanny valley a little bit with, I guess, like his look to an extent from a distance. Everything just feels bizarre and off and unfucking safe. And I'm so glad that you brought up it and Welcome to Derry, because I think that there was definitely some inspiration there, or at the very least it felt so similar, because it's a character that I'm sure as a child you're not thinking or looking too into what Jack the Jackass looks like, but I almost thought of like, fuck it, like what if Barney, you know what I'm saying? Like Not to say that that's next in the IP horror adaptation, but Jesus Christ, like if you look at Barney long enough, I would almost be curious to see what Damien McCarthy could do to Barney at that point. Because
I was so fucking obsessed with Barney. That is for horror movie potential. I love you. Yeah. You love me. There's something there about a killing spree. There's something there. We'll workshop it.
Oh, listen, I think that there's definitely something there to absolutely destroy your childhood memories. 1,000%.
Oh man, somebody's gonna do it.
Watch, now there's gonna be a fucking Netflix or Hulu doc on the rancid like fucking drug scene that befell fucking the guys who played Barney or some shit. It's gonna there's gonna be something dramatic out there
any moment now.
Oh my gosh. Well, there were so many, I think, effective moments in this movie, little ones, and then there was ones that were really spread out. And I think that, for me, there was themes that really stand out, which we can get into. But there's a scene that happens when we're really in the thick of it, when Ohm is in the honeymoon suite and he's definitely stuck. Like he's up, he spends some time up there. He goes through some shit. He sees some shit. He ends up somehow falling asleep. Well, now we know he fell asleep because he was on the magic mushrooms. You know what I mean? He got kind of slipped some mushrooms in that whiskey flask. And so there's that whole sequence, but it's after, he figures out that he's stuck there and he has to find a way out. Right. So he's going down this elevator shaft or whatever we're calling it. I don't even know, but he's going down this thing to get down into the basement, the thing that Fiona was stuck in. And there's so much happening with this when you really think about it. There's a lot of the eerie atmosphere that's happening. There's a mixture of what I think is really brilliant to the story is there's this mixture of this tape recorder that was that Fiona has, that she is leaving these messages and her like ghost is basically playing these at like the most perfect moments. kind of like guiding him through some things, like talking through her story and her experience. And there's moments where she's like, you know, you're going to have to kind of rig this up because you're not going to be, the button doesn't work down there. So if you have to get back up, you're going to have to rig it somehow. So he kind of rigs it up. He goes down there and he's kind of like lurking around, and we get this wailing throughout the whole movie. We get this thing like throughout the whole movie, and we're like, what is this? Is just part of the sound design. And we later find out that it's like the howl of what the sound that his mother made when she died, basically, is what is like latching on to. And he keeps being haunted by this. And so like he's down there, he's hearing this wailing that's happening the whole time. And then as soon as like this tape recorder kicks in and he starts to hear Fiona talking, saying like she doesn't think she's alone down here. And then it shuts off and he can start to hear these chains, and he can hear the witch that's down there that has been trapped down there by the owner of the hotel. That's part of the folklore. And we'll get into it. I want to hear what y'all think about the witch aspect, but like, let's just talk and live in the scene for a second, because like the witch is coming. You can hear it. You can't see shit. It's dark as hell down there. It's like a dungeon. There's like very dim lighting along the walls. And he's like, he realizes, oh shit, this is not a good time. He hears the thing potentially going off. So he's got like maybe seconds to get back up there. So he runs back up there, but it's not working. Of course it's not fucking working. Why would it work when he thinks it's going to work? So he's sitting there, and you can see he's really trying to see into the darkness. And like, we're reacting, probably, at least I was reacting in the same way. He's like ducking down to like look, and I'm ducking down to look. I'm like, yeah, do you see anything? I'm not seeing anything. I'm like talking to this guy. I'm like, oh, do you see anything? I don't see shit. I'm looking. And then finally it dings. He starts to go up, and you see like this slow emergence of like the witch, but you don't really get a full picture, and he's going up, right? And then it starts to go down. When he gets up, he jumps out. This fucking thing starts crawling up the fucking shaft. This thing, it's creepy. This whole scene doesn't let up. As she's coming up, the witch is coming up. He closes the door. Her fingers are coming out. She chases him through the whole honeymoon suite. He somehow, well, when he falls into that nasty water in the bathtub, God knows how long it's been there, but he draws a chalk circle around the bed, and he's able to like save himself in that moment. That whole progression had me on the edge of my fucking seat. That shit was wild and so effective, and it doesn't even give you that much like visual of the witch. It's just like a perfect level of restraint that I thought was really, really well done.
I literally was holding my breath throughout that whole scene, and the way that you just retold it, I was feeling that tension all over again. Some kind of level of like, oh shit, I'm back in that space. Yeah. I'm back in that scene. Not fun. Not fun.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that was the most tense moment of the entire movie. It all really builds up to that, which I respect. One of the things that stood out, especially when we talk about the wailing and how we realize it's his mom's sound. You know what it reminded me of, and what I couldn't get out of my head when I heard that? Undertone and waiting for the fucking death rattle. That is what was buried in my head the entire fucking.
So true. Dang. That is true. Super effective use of that for sure. And like how you don't really know what it is throughout the whole movie, I think adds to another level of that. But yeah, when you think of all the different layers of what's happening once we're in and living in this space in the story, I know you all have kind of mentioned like what you thought was, you know, like maybe what we thought should or shouldn't have been in the movie or whatever. We think there's too many layers to this. To me, I will say, like, I get the whole witch aspect and the whole folklore aspect of the things. Like, I could see that it's like, okay, well, this is just like another thing in there, but we have so much going on with Ohm and his haunting, and like, did the witch aspect need to be in there? I don't know if that's what you all were alluding to, but I think for me, what made this movie work was that there were a couple of different kind of entities that added to the spookiness of this film. And I think that they didn't give you a lot about the witch. They don't really dive into like the backstory of this witch too much. And I think it just kind of added to the film. I kind of liked it.
I think for the layers that we got, we have so many different things, right? We have a guy and his guilt, a guy and his grief going to a place to try to get some kind of closure and spread his parents' ashes. That's one. You have going to this hotel where his parents were, weird shit going on in the hotel, actual murder That's 2. You have Jerry and his whole wife thing in the mushrooms. That's 3. When you get down to it, and even what this movie even like acknowledges up until the very end, when Albie admits that he drugged Ohm with the mushrooms and he spiked his whiskey with it.
Yeah.
It becomes this like momentary question of, oh, did any of that really happen? Or was that tripping balls? And then obviously you see the marks on his wrist and it opened up his mind to the supernatural. Okay, we acknowledge it. But for me, I get it. I get the comparison there and like the vulnerability of that. But I still just didn't love the stacking on stacking on stacking. For me, the witch angle, I think there was enough for me that was compelling and scary in his own mind without there needing to actually be a supernatural witch angle. That's just me personally.
I'm with you on that to an extent, because like I actually think that I would have traded something else to be omitted instead of the witch. Like, for example, Jack, I was a little disappointed that he is not really the main antagonist or just really isn't in the movie that much at all, because I think his character design could have done wonders to be something terrifying long term or whatever, right? So that was a little disappointing. But I think ultimately for me, what I would have probably removed was Mal. Because personally, first of all, I can't even just comprehend what she could have seen in him to begin with. Secondly, the very little chemistry that was established to let me buy into that whole story. Third, quite frankly, at one point, my best friend was like, wait a minute, why should I care about this? Who the fuck is this guy? Isn't he just like the bellhop or something? And then I had to be like, bro, apparently it was said, and I had to recollect, that he is the son-in-law of the owner. But why is the groundskeeper, Fergal, the one that seems more like his son-in-law than Mal? Like, it's just a weird red herring situation that didn't need to be there at all. I think that there could have still been this like murder mystery element with it being the witch ultimately, and not having to include a whole other plot line of
she did go up there just to see, like she got fucked up at the party, she finally got like the nerve to go up there, and then she got by the witch kind of thing.
Or even if we were to kind of change a little bit when the suicide attempt happens, right, or something to that effect, where it would prompt her to want to find where he is or Ohm is, and maybe she finds herself in that room. She finds something that piques her curiosity, but she still continues to look for Ohm, saves him, whatever. But ultimately, she found something that draws her to want to go back into that honeymoon suite. Something along those lines, I guess. It just seemed a little bit like we need to find some random guy where we can give her enough reason to get killed. And we're going to pick that guy. Like, it just seemed very random.
You know, I was just thinking about this when you're talking about, okay, Mal, yes, we can get rid of him. As you're reflecting on this, Binks, and you're like, fuck, I wanted like the witch angle to be there. I wanted Jack to be there. I'm just thinking, damn, you really are the paranormal paramour, because you want some spooky shit where I'm like, give me the real person. Give me the murder mystery. Give me the groundskeeper who's a little angry and a little jaded and wants to fuck some shit up and have a great revenge plot. That's where I'm at. I mean, leave it to me to want the slasher energy in the fucking paranormal movie. But going back to Jack for just a second, Jack had as much to impact in this movie as you remember in The Shining when there's like that guy in the fucking bear costume or the dog costume who's getting a blowjob from the other fucking guy that opened in. That is the equivalent exposure here that we got. And it's just a criminal underutilization.
Yeah.
I wanted more bear blowjob. Okay. I wanted,
didn't you just have obsession?
I did. I did.
Oh my gosh.
I'll watch it again.
I think so. This is what I was kind of talking about earlier, and saying that I also agree, and to some extent, that Jack was genuinely a creepy looking aspect of this movie. From the trailers, I was like, fuck this thing. Like, I don't know what this is. I'm not into it. It's creepy as hell. I think it did add to that level of creepiness, but to me, to your point, Binks, like maybe we needed a little bit more of Jack in the story, because it did end up feeling like we were just kind of finding a reason to throw that in there to an extent. But then like that was my initial reaction to watching this film. And then if you like watch the film again and you really kind of like dive into there's so many little things that this movie is trying to tell you. So like there's a lot where this movie, you gotta think about it. You gotta think of all the little things that are said, all the things that are mentioned, the references, what all the characters are saying, because there's a really interesting moment, or there's a interesting point that is brought up early on in the film about the goats. And the goats in this movie are they're like killing off these goats because they're just like trampling on top of these customers, these guest cars, right? But there's this moment where Jerry's kind of introducing like the goats, and they're saying like the goats like to eat these mushrooms too. You know what I mean? The goats are tripping on these mushrooms in the woods, and they kind of like to jump on cars because they like to stare at themselves in the car. And there's like this point that they can, when you stare into reflective surfaces, you can see deeper into things. And like, but he's like, well, but you got to be careful, man. Like if you trip in too hard and you look into a mirror, man, you're going to trip out even harder, man. Like he's like, really like, it's Jerry, man. He's tripping on mushrooms the whole time. So it's interesting. So what I'm thinking about that, I'm like, why the fuck was this like such a centerpiece in the dialogue? And then I'm thinking at the moment that Ohm is looking into the TV screen, it's a reflective surface. And so like maybe he's actually looking at himself and seeing Jack, because it's like a repressed memory of this childhood, I don't know, TV host that he was watching at the time that this happened. And so he's haunted by the visual of this, and he's remembering this. And I don't know how factual the moment where he's reading a letter that's sent by Ohm. Like, I don't know if he actually did send that letter in. I don't think so. But I think he's just like, you know what I mean? But I think, he's tripping. He's looking in a reflective surface, I think. So now I'm like, okay, I can kind of buy into Jack a little bit more, but I still think ultimately it did feel like kind of like we're just sprinkling it in there for effect.
Listen, that was the aspect that I was okay with being sprinkled. Okay. I want more Jack, less witch.
Okay.
Give me that. Give me the repressed trauma, and I am satisfied with that.
He was a jackass, Ohm, at the very least. So
yeah.
Okay, speaking of Ohm being a jackass, I want to talk about one of my favorite fucking moments in this movie, which is honestly so fucked up and so shitty, and then obviously comes back at the end. Ohm is approached by Albie, and he calls him an oblivious charisma vacuum. I can't tell you how many people I know on a regular fucking basis that I honestly, I went to, I shouldn't say that.
Yikes.
I was out in just life today, and I saw at least 6 people that I wanted to call an oblivious charisma vacuum, not unlike an energy vampire. And I absolutely love and hate when he calls him that, because it shows how dismissive Ohm is towards someone who genuinely looks up to him. It is cutting. It is an insult. It is so disrespectful. And it's a deep lack of generosity. So, obviously when Albie asks Ohm to read his manuscript, I mean, this moment, it's like you hear this quote, "Never meet your heroes." And you have this moment of like, okay, he idolizes this person. He is a creative person. He is proud of his work. He wants to share his work. And I think from Ohm's perspective, okay, how many people are going to ask you to read their manuscript? But when Albie asks, and then Ohm declines, and then Albie says no, when Albie asks why not, he burns his hand with a fucking spoon that he was like holding over a flame. And it's fucked up, but also really well timed. And it says that he needs thicker skin than that if he wants to make it as a writer. It's brutal. It's funny in a really fucking mean way. But as fucked up as it is, I think it does a really good job of showing how deeply wounded Ohm is and how jaded and bitter he is, which I think obviously serves the change that he ends up making really well, because it makes it more meaningful.
I wrote the same thing basically about that cautionary never meet your hero's tale, because it definitely is something where it facilitates this opportunity to humanize your heroes, even if what you're humanizing them into is something not so great down the line, right? Ultimately, some of your heroes are going to be extremely flawed and broken people. So that's exactly what we have here with Ohm. And he is an incredible personification of guilt, cynicism, grief, suicidal ideation, like all of these very dark thoughts and feelings, right? And an artist to boot, of course, like the mega passions and extremes of conveying emotion on paper. And I think that it's like they're the polar opposite of people, ultimately, at the end of the day. I do find it curious, not to go back to Jack, but I hadn't realized this in the moment, that the actor that plays Albie also plays Jack, the jackass. So I don't know if that's supposed to be some kind of other thing. Maybe it's just like, hey, let's save some money and throw some makeup on you, bro. But maybe it's that.
Let's
but
work
I thought
different options here.
Yeah.
1, range for that actor. Great job. 2, okay, stares into a reflective surface, high as fuck, and looks back into this repressed memory.
Yeah.
That's 1. When he does that, he is subconsciously looking into the face of someone who, in their own creative field, is not encountering the same stuck points in grief. And almost, okay, you look at someone towards the end or like the middle or end of their career, someone who's at the beginning, who still has the wonder and the magic and the belief in writing. Is he looking back on his past self in that way too? So I think it's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that positivity. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. There's a lot going on here. And I think when we really just look at, we're even touching on like how Ohm has treated people and how he treated Albie and all this stuff in the beginning. And then we're getting like the journey that Ohm goes throughout this movie and how he eventually gets to the end of this movie where he has kind of let all of that go. And he's been able to move past some of his guilt and his grief and his trauma. And I think like, there's such a good moment in the film towards the end where he is essentially chained up. Like he is down there because he's trying to figure out a way to like, Jerry's dead. The place is on fire. Mal is, trying to chase after him for the keys and whatnot. And so he goes down into the basement again. And, there's a moment where he is being chased by the witch. He thinks he's going to like draw the whole chalk circle, but he clearly doesn't finish it in time. And the witch, we get the first like full face frontal of the witch, which is kind of interesting. Maybe like looks more like a goblin or something, but he gets chained up, and then we're introduced to Mal coming down, and Mal gets chained up, and now he's getting dragged by the witch down the hall, and he runs into Ohm, and then he gets dragged past Ohm into like the underworld, which is wild. And then he has this moment, where the ghost of his mom comes down and like hugs him, just like she hugged him when he shot her. And it's such an emotional moment where she's like, you can't stay here. Like he's saying like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident or whatever. He's saying it was an accident. She's like, I know, you can't stay here. And like it's just such an emotional moment. Like physically, yes, you can't fucking stay here. And emotionally, you cannot stay here. You can't stay in this space. You have to move on and you have to get out of here. And he has that kind of moment where he finally is able to feel like he can come to peace with what happened, and he's able to escape and get out. And it's like that whole thing where, he gets out of that and he finally wakes up in the hospital. He's reintroduced to Albie, who is now serving ice cream next door. He's a jack of all trades. And it comes full circle, right? He's nice. He wants to read the manuscript now. He's moved on. You can tell he's shed a new light. And I think the journey was really interesting and very, very heavy, but very emotional. And I kind of went on that journey with him.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you go from Ohm being abrasive, dismissive, super blocked and stunted emotionally and cruel to then extending the most basic form of generosity at the end, which I really, really appreciate. Because again, think about it like that framing. He is doom-centered in his writing. He is stunted creatively. he cannot finish his own story because he hasn't been able to resolve anything from his life. And even in the way that's reflected to how he treats Albie, and to see the pivot that he makes from being an oblivious charisma vacuum to then suddenly like relenting towards the end, like, okay, yes, he doesn't even like acknowledge it or say it in a way that feels really warm, but there's a shared understanding between the two that I appreciate.
Yeah, 100%. Oh man, what a crazy time, this whole movie. But the atmosphere was so spooky. It was genuinely a creepy vibe to be in this movie, to live in this space. I'm just like, if you could go and spend the night in this honeymoon suite, would you do it?
Man, Sean, listen, I'm still trying to go to Lizzie Borden's bed and breakfast. Abso-fucking-lutely. If that shit's haunted, I want to be there.
Oh man, if this is like a real hotel in Ireland, I think this is a destination trip for sure.
Y'all, I can't with y'all. Look, will I go to see it? Yes, fine. Will I stay there? Hell nah. Nope.
And would you go to the basement?
No, fuck the basement. Now you're asking for too much. Now you got me fucked up.
You really think she's going to tiptoe anywhere down there?
Oh,
stop it.
Snap.
Oh my God. The way that I sat at the movie theater and could not escape the trailer for the new
Oh.
That was hell. That was something that I did not account for. Oh, man. So going to the movies has really sucked. I'm going to purposely miss the trailers now. It's quite the time.
Wild.
Listen. Go ahead, Sean.
Listen, I love to play on this kind of like, it's hard when you talk about like what is the best and the worst part of this movie. I think that they did on one end of the spectrum. I think they did like a really good job with this kind of like double haunting scenario where you essentially have this story of the witch and how the witch is kind of haunting this honeymoon suite. And or basement or whatever the fuck. But and then you have the haunting that Ohm is dealing with. And it's like this really crazy thing of like, you're mixed with this feeling of, is the place haunted or is Ohm haunted, or both are two things that are happening at the same time, and Ohm is coming in haunted to a haunted establishment and it adds to this layer. I think that part of the aspect for me, I think it worked really well. I think where, I think some people can see, and we've already kind of touched on, could be like one of the things that works against the film is that they add other layers into this film. Some people may not like the witch folklore layer. Some people may not like that they threw in this character of Jack, or adding in all of the layers of Jerry and his backstory, and Mal and his devious fucking plots of killing these people and killing Fiona and Fiona's ghost and all of these different things. So there is a lot happening here. To me, it doesn't really work against the film. I don't think so, but I think I could see it being a worst part for a lot of people, any given one of those things. So it's unfortunate, but I think for the most part, it worked really well for me. I can definitely do more horror like this. I think we're probably living in a reality where a lot of horror is doing stuff where they're kind of like, maybe not to this level, but kind of giving you multiple entities of things that are happening, multiple layers of things where it's more psychological. So I don't know. I liked it, but I can see it working against the film.
Yeah, and I just certainly can think of a few other movies, sure, that kind of mix the two. I think, if anything, I just wish that the actual lore itself was standing on like all four pegs of a stool, or like 10 toes down in what it actually was, because it felt like a quick moment in passing. And then aside from the actual story, we just know that you never go to the honeymoon suite. And I think with that, I kind of just forget, because I'm too bought into what is clearly the main focus, at least in my interpretation of it, which was this murder mystery. And it never really is quite good at convincing me that the murder could have potentially been this honeymoon suite or this lore or this witch at all. It always felt like, no, it's actually someone or something actually happened. So I think that if they were going to mix these two things, it could have just kept at two and not focused on trying to give us 25% of every single thing. Just give us the 50-50 of two.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, listen, I think I've spoken ad nauseum of how much I wish we had just gone more of the straightforward okay, we mix the drugs, so I like the idea of maybe believing that something supernatural is going on, but to truly get it and then to wrap things up with the marks on the wrists, I'm like, okay, we didn't necessarily need it. And I think that's an interesting taste that this is leaving in my mouth, because was this movie good? Hell yeah. It really was. There's a lot to sink your teeth into here. And there's a lot of good stuff happening. And could I rewatch it? Absolutely. Again, aesthetically, this movie is a sight to behold. It is a technical feat. But would I rewatch it? I don't know that I'm going to be super impressed. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. To be clear, I'm not saying that you shouldn't rewatch it or that it's unworthy of it. But I think for the type of horror that I like, I'm really glad that I watched this, but I don't necessarily need to revisit it.
Yeah, I think me, obviously, the opposite spectrum of this. It's definitely up my alley, not only just for like the murder mystery of it all, it's mostly the paranormal, obviously. So aside from the fact that I obviously have great memories of having watched this movie, that definitely adds a little bit of the bias. I won't lie. I really had a good time with this movie and would watch it again. If I ever go to Ireland, hell yeah, I feel like that would be terrifying, but could be fun to watch. But for the time being, I think this is a really good Halloween watch. Spooky time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, for me, this movie hit a lot of it checkmarked a lot of things for me. I feel like I'm someone that really does like a good ghost story. I'm someone that really likes kind of like a true crime. I'm like a true crime junkie. So I kind of like, it kind of scratches that itch for me. It's spooky. I think it's just, all of it just is really well done for me. And so for me, like, I've watched it twice now, and the second time around was just as good as the first time. It makes me want to watch it again. So when this comes around and it's something that I can purchase, I will 100% probably be owning this. Hey, you give me a Damon McCarthy bundle, I'm probably just going to buy the whole thing for sure. It's definitely a resounding rewatch. There's a lot of rewatch value. There's a lot to take out of this movie. So you watch it once, maybe you don't catch everything. I think just for that alone, you should rewatch the movie.
Yeah, that is fair. I think I would rewatch Oddity, but I don't know that I would get through this one. I am curious now to see Caveat and to see how I feel about that and where I would rank Damien McCarthy's work. But for now, folks, Hokum has earned a universal slash, and yet there is still so much more to unpack. Now, we were faced with another movie built around grief, folklore, writers tormented in haunted hotels, but we all collectively stayed for Damien McCarthy's scare-first approach, Adam Scott's abrasive lead performance, and whether the atmosphere of this hotel was enough to hold the whole thing together.
100%. And, the real question is, would you go up into this honeymoon suite and fuck around and find out? Would you drink Jerry's magic milk? You can go even further than the show and continue the conversation in our subreddit. Check us out at hacker/pod and continue the conversation with us.
We'll see you next time, folks. And remember, with that attitude, you can stay lost.
The bleak endings.